Right. So why don't we discuss what happened today with regard to Michael Easter and reminding everybody he is the crime analyst, not a crime analyst, the crime expert, crime procedures,
former FBI dude,
former FBI procedural. I'd say how you investigate a case. The expert that the defense wanted to present, very common in many jurisdictions, and he wanted to say that not only was the investigation done improperly and in violation of most police procedures, but it was also in violation of police procedures, both of Canton and of the Massachusetts State Police. He wanted to be not only generic, but specific, because he looked, Alan Jackson made a point that he looked at all the procedures to see, number one, I guess, whether or not first they're in conformity with the generic procedures as taught by the FBI and others, and secondly, whether what they did was in conformity with their own procedures. And guess what happened?
Well, denied. Here's the memorandum decision and order on the Commonwealth's motion in limine to exclude Michael Easter. And I guess it's possible he is resurrected, but highly unlikely. Let me hit some of the high points here of this detailed and flawed analysis, in my opinion.
Yes, flawed. And let's put it on. We put it on the line, by the way. And if you like that we're saying that, you can hit the like button on Justice Serve TV. And if you think that we're aligned with some criminal and you don't like we're saying that, you're not going to hit the like button. But please hit that like button.
Let me share this before we dive into this a little bit more.
Okay.
We have comments, of course, and somebody, and I think it was, I want to say Chris. I'm not 100% sure on that. Sorry, Chris, if it's not Chris. But they were calling me out. They said, now that Easter has been denied, Mike called me Mike. You said you would then agree that Judge Cannone is biased, and you need to admit that and be true to your word. Okay,
you did say that.
I did say that, and here's perfect proof of it. In fact, I'd like to find out, Judge Cannone, could you come on down here? Come and explain this to me right here. See if she'll come down and give us some explanation as to how she could possibly decide that you can't attack the credibility of the investigation. Because why? Because she didn't find the Massachusetts case, and we saw her queuing this up when they were arguing the motion. Do you have a state? Do you have a Massachusetts case? And I think the response at the time was, "I'm looking for it. There's certainly some federal cases," and she made it clear that she was almost like she knew there wasn't any Massachusetts case.
Right.
So what she now says is the court cannot find, nor has the defense counsel cited, one Massachusetts case where an expert was permitted to opine on the general competency of a police investigation. The lack of authority suggests that I can't read my type, that during all of the jury trials where the defense has been inadequate police investigations based on Bowden, we'll talk about Bowden in a second, expert testimony has not been needed for the jury to be able to evaluate the reliability. And what she's saying is, she's almost saying it's a layperson analysis here. Remember, you only need expert testimony where it is outside the purview of a normal person, a lay person. And she's making it sound like, well, there's no Massachusetts case because you don't need an expert for that. The Commonwealth's case and whether any failure to investigate steps are sufficient to create a reasonable doubt of the defendant's guilt. Again, you don't need an expert for that, is what she's saying. And because there's no Massachusetts case on point, you don't get to have one. So what does that leave them to do? Of course, they're going to be cross-examining all of these cops about using red Solo cups, about using a leaf blower. Where is that in the manual? That's the cross-examination is going to have to fill this hole.
Yeah, and she says, through zealous cross-examination of police witnesses, the defendant can cast doubt on the reliability of the investigation by demonstrating how it differed from standard practices and procedures, and can raise the issue of potential bias by police action or inaction, as counsel did effectively during the first trial. So there you go with Neil Rockhines. Atta girl, atta boy, atta good defense lawyer. You're so good in what you do. You don't need to have an expert do what you do. By the way, how are you going to say it different from standard police procedures? Because they're just going to lie. They're going to say, yeah, this is how we do it,
Well,
or
I have to
whatever.
admit, in that case, common sense will rule. The jurors will go, "You're telling me that's normal, not to rope?" I mean, people have seen enough cop shows. Simple things like cordoning off a crime scene, that's kind of law enforcement 101. Gathering evidence properly, marking the evidence with tags, having evidentiary a chain of custody. All of those things people know about. And I don't care
Yeah.
how many times you say it's normal and it's the way it should be done. People on the jury are not going to say, "Oh, yeah, you're right. That's great. I'm sure you did a fine job." So let me
Well,
just
that's
say
true.
officially,
Everybody.
as a result of this, I believe Judge Cannone is biased.
There you go.
I've gone over the line.
There you go. Now, to remind everybody what the Bowden defense is, okay? Let me just quote it, and it's actually in the opinion, because she quotes it because it's important. The defendant may present evidence that certain tests were not conducted, that certain police procedures were not followed, or that certain information known to the police about another suspect was not investigated in circumstances in which it is reasonable to expect that the police should have conducted such tests, followed such procedures, or investigated such information. Hmm. 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 That's the Bowden defense, okay?
Okay,
So, but
got it.
how do you, without expert testimony, really satisfy the last prong? And this is where I see Hank Brennan going, that there have to be circumstances in which it was reasonable to expect the police should have conducted this test procedures or investigated the information. They're going to say, well, it was snowing. We didn't expect this massive snowstorm. We had no way to do it. So we took our investigative judgment and we borrowed what we thought would be clean cups from somebody. That's why we used red Solo cups. Okay. That's why we used a leaf blower, because we had to get to John O'Keefe and get to what we thought was the evidence without blowing the evidence away. How do you do that? Because that's, I see Hank Brennan going there.
That's it. You've got to justify it. I think it's one of those situations where if you say it with enough conviction, you're just hoping people believe it, because what else you got? One of the things that makes me wonder is this the Keystone Cops here? You have units called to a crime scene, and at a certain point, there's either dead or dying victim, right? And you don't have a CSI type mini, kit with every single cruiser. I don't mean the full-blown CSI team, but just a simple kit that has collection, it has gloves, has bags. It just makes it sound like what a Mickey Mouse operation this is, with all due respect to Mickey Mouse.